The Washington Wizards. Is there a more annoying / irrelevant franchise? Maybe, maybe not. Who cares? We're going to talk about it from a fantasy perspective, Michael Bolton.
Thanks, Josh. It's Michael Bolton here, and it's time for another episode of the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Podcast. Let's get to it.
Let's get to it, indeed.
You are Locked On Fantasy Basketball, your daily fantasy basketball podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Podcast, brought to you by Basketball Monster. My name is Josh Lloyd, and I was recently, today, diagnosed with a partially torn ACL. The Hornets have listed me doubtful. I'm also the lead fantasy analyst at basketballmonster.com, and you can find me on Twitter, as always, at redrock_bball, on TikTok at redrock_bball, and on Instagram at Locked On Fantasy Basketball. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Why did I say today's twice? I don't know. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed. That is $150, win or lose. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn to get started. Thank you also for making Locked On Fantasy Basketball your first listen every day. We are free and we are available on all platforms, so double bang. It's the key to life, really. Throw the old bang on the audio, throw the bang on the video, and we're good to go. We're talking Wizards. That wasn't a joke. I hurt my knee. I talked about this on the podcast a while ago, and maybe I'll give you the update. I hurt my knee 2 years ago skiing, and I thought, geez, I reckon I've torn my ACL here. Hurt ridiculous. It was actually a snowboarding lesson, and it bent back under me. Well, this is not good. I tried to get back out the next day, just couldn't put any pressure on to turn on the skis, and struggled my way down. It was bad. Last year I was able to go back skiing, and it would still hurt, but brace, all that sort of stuff on. And it's just been giving me so many problems over the last week. No, that's not true. Last 2-3 months, radiating pain down the back of my calf. I'm like, what have I done? Have I torn my calf now as well? I don't know what happened. So I finally got an MRI, and the MRI showed that, I did have a partial ACL tear. There's distinct thinning of the ACL, no partial rupture on that, no patella or meniscus or cartilage issues or MCL, nothing like that, just straight through onto the old ACL tear. So now I find out what I need to do. I don't think there'll be any surgery involved. It's an older ACL tear, but I'm guessing there's got to be some rehab because I can barely walk, which is absolutely an L for me for not getting it checked out sooner, but also just because it's annoying. So that's where we're at. We're talking Wizards. They don't care about my ACL, I'm sure, because I'm pretty sure they're not going to get me to come and play any minutes. We're talking Washington Wizards, a team that just narrowly missed out on being the worst team in the NBA, but they were the worst team in our hearts for a lot of the season. Let's have a look exactly what went down with this putrid squad. They finished unbelievably 15-67. We had two teams with 15 wins or less. 15 wins or fewer. That seems pretty hard to do, but it happened. These teams, both them and Detroit, were horrible. They had a negative 9.7 net rating, the Wizards. They were 25th in offense and 29th in defense, and I am shocked that the Wizards weren't the worst defense. They were just putrid on a nightly basis. Their preseason over-under was actually 24.5. Now, I know they had a really low... I thought at the time they had a really low preseason over-under. I thought, that's a bit weird. They have some players who are NBA players. Maybe they hit it. I ended up going under on my prediction for them. So I'm going to use these team review shows, I guess, as a way of holding myself accountable, I guess, on the preseason over-under win totals. I only barely went under. I had them at 23 wins, so it was way above the actual result, but I did hit the under 24.5. So that's them and Detroit that I hit. It won't be the case for all of them, don't worry, but that's where we're at with that one. So they were bad. We know they were bad. They deliberately were bad because they took too long to become bad. They were able to somehow unload themselves from the terrible, terrible Bradley Beal contract, which of course they put themselves in that position. They got a coach to hire as well. Whether Brian Keefe comes back or not, I'm not sure. They have got a lot of decisions that need to be made. In the draft, they could finish anywhere from the first pick through to the 6th pick. They could go to any of those spots. Their highest percentage chance, like Detroit, is to finish with pick 5. Now, Detroit's got a 48% chance of picking at 5. The Wizards have got a 28% chance of picking at 5. It is way more likely that Washington picks either 5 or 6 than it does they pick in the top 4. It's actually, that's not true, sorry. Their two highest percentage chances are 5 and 6, and then it's 1, 2, 3, 4. But there's still a decent chance they get a pretty high pick. But of course, this is the worst year to begin your tank. It's a bad draft class with no clear number one guy separating, with maybe it ends up being the 10th ranked player or the 10th drafted player or the 15th drafted player ends up the best guy by a mile. When we say bad draft class, that's what we mean. No clear, absolute studs at the top, not a raft of guys who become persistent or consistent All-NBA players. You'll have guys that randomly step up and become good. That happens all the time, and that's what people will always use to say, well, you actually said this draft was bad, and look what happened. Yeah, we did, but nearly, and I will maintain this, that when people say a draft is good or a draft is bad, it nearly always is true. Even though you get a random outlier player or two players come from nowhere, that does not make a good draft class. There's depth in this class, but you don't care about depth when you could be getting pick 1. They've also got pick 26, and they've also got pick 51. So they do at least, unlike Detroit, have a second crack at things. Detroit is out draft picks. At least Washington's got an extra one here. That 26 pick is this weird one where it's the second worst of the Thunder, Clippers, Rockets, Jazz pick. I don't even remember how they got that one, to be honest. It's sort of been all over the place. And they've also got that they don't have their own second. That has gone to the Jazz. But they do have the Suns' second, pick 52, part of the pick 51, part of the Bradley Beal deal. So that's where that is for them, with their draft picks. Their most common starting group of the guys still on the team, their most common starting group had Daniel Gafford in it, but he's no longer on the team. Their most common starters of everyone who was there is Tyus Jones, Jordan Poole, Deni Avdija, Kyle Kuzma, and Marvin Bagley. It actually was equal in terms of games started with this lineup, which was the lineup when Bagley was hurt. It was the Tyus Jones, Bilal, Coulibaly, Deni Avdija, Cory Phillips, Kyle Kuzma at center lineup. But I didn't put that up because I don't expect they're going to head into next season going, yep, we're just going to run no centers. So this was their most common, and it only started 4 times. Most common starting lineup. Their best lineup didn't play a huge amount. We're using the cleaning the glass filters on this, but it was a plus 19.5. It had Jordan Poole at point guard with Cory Phillips, Deni Avdija, Kyle Kuzma, and Richaun Holmes at center. And I get this. You've got the defense of Deni with ball movement, shooting, and nothing else of Cory Phillips. Jordan Poole in a position to do what Jordan Poole can do, and that is handle the ball. Kuzma doing what he does, and then Holmes being solid enough at center and not being as much of a liability as someone like a Marvin Bagley on the defensive end. Not saying this is a lineup that they should go with next season or that's going to be the thing they do all the time, but it makes a little bit of sense to put Jordan Poole more in that position I think he works best in, get some shooting and defense around him with Kispert and Avdija, and a guy that's not a bad center in terms of defense with Richaun Holmes. Again, a lot of spots needing upgrades, but the theory of this lineup makes sense as to why it would be their best lineup. Free agents, restricted guys, it is only two-way legend, 20,000 league deep legend Jules Bernard, who showed a couple of flashes, but then sort of disappeared. They didn't really play much down the stretch. 2 unrestricted guys, and one of those is very important. That is Tyus Jones and Anthony Gill. I can't believe that they didn't trade Tyus Jones away at the deadline. Just get a first, anything back for him. Why? Because I don't think he's going to want to come back as an unrestricted guy. Maybe he does. I don't think they should want him to come back as an unrestricted guy. Not that he's not good, but he's completely mid, and he's 28, and I don't know what that benefits them. Anthony Gill, take that 11. He's no good. That's fine. That's their unrestricted guys. They've got a team option on Tristan Vukcevic, which they will 100% pick up. He came across, played the final 10 games of the season. They'll pick that team option up without any question whatsoever. And then Richaun Holmes is a $12.9 million player option, which if he hasn't picked it up already, he's going to pick it up. There is zero chance he's getting $12.9 million on the open market, but that means they will have Vukcevic, Holmes, and Bagley on this roster heading into next season. So maybe they don't go and get another center. Maybe they just run with a Vukcevic and Bagley and Holmes trio and see how it works, which would be a disaster for fantasy. But they will have those guys there. So Holmes is 100% coming back. There are 3 players with non-guaranteed or partially guaranteed contracts. One of them is Landry Shamet, who, again, that was a terrible signing by Phoenix. He's got $11.1 million on a non-guarantee. He's also extension eligible, which they won't do. But I would be getting rid of him. He offers nothing. Eugene Omoruyi, who they converted from a 2-way, and Jared Butler, who they converted from 2-ways. They have partial guarantees next season. Butler in particular showed me enough that they should be keeping him. Omoruyi, I think he's a little bit undersized to play center. He's fine on a team that wins 15 games. And like, what did he play last season for Detroit, a team that won 17 games? That's about it. Good that he got that upgrade. Nice that he got that NBA contract for a year. But yeah, otherwise, we're not that interested in Eugene Marie. There are 3 players who will be entering next season on expiring deals. One of them is, why is that rank so slow? One of them is pretty interesting, and that is Cory Phillips, who's a restricted free agent. So he will be extension eligible heading into the season. You've got Marvin Bagley, who will be unrestricted. This is his contract year. And then two-way Justin Champagny, who started some games and then was out of the rotation. I don't think he's quite as good as his brother, but there's a little bit of something there from Justin. But he will be a restricted two-way guy, which if they want him, they should just convert him to a full contract and make that decision. Very rarely do players who show stuff as two-way guys end up going all the way through, unless you've Krejci through to restricted free agency. But Kispert will be interesting to see whether they give him a deal. And if they decide he's a $20 million player, then they're idiots. He should be $448, honestly, if you want to do something with him and maybe see if there's growth, but not sure he takes it. We'll see. I think that might be one that lasts a little bit of time into free agency. So that's where they're at with their free agent situation. So no big openings or anything like that, just the Tyus Jones spot. And really the other one is going to be what they do with Kispert moving forward in terms of whether he's extension eligible or anything like that. Today's episode is brought to you by DoorDash. Is it supposed to be brought to you by DoorDash? I'm pretty sure it is. Yes, it is supposed to be brought to you by DoorDash because Mother's Day is here. So why wouldn't it be brought to you by DoorDash? DoorDash is just, you know DoorDash. But Mum's Day. That sounds weird to say it that way, doesn't it? But it doesn't matter how I say it. As long as you have it in your head, go, oh, Josh called it Mum's Day. What an idiot. But I've actually got to go and buy something for my mum. And with DoorDash, you can do it without leaving your house. Whether your mum is into flowers, maybe she's into sweets, confectionery, food, tech, gadgets, clothes, whatever it is, DoorDash can get that stuff sent to you on the same day. So you're never going to have an excuse to forget. Because even if you remember, on Mother's Day, hey, maybe you just get it sent straight to you that day. And your mum doesn't have to be any the wiser. Hey, mum, yeah, look, here's his present that arrived 20 minutes ago. Maybe she's got a sweet tooth. Maybe she is that tech enthusiast. She wants a new pair of headphones. She wants a tablet. She wants an electronic massage chair. I don't know. You do, though. And DoorDash can get that stuff delivered to you. So get your Mother's Day gift, or get a Mother's Day gift that is as unique as she is with DoorDash. Use the code LOCKEDONNBA to get 50% off your next order, up to $15 when you spend $15 or more on your next flour, convenience, grocery, or retail order now on DoorDash. That is LOCKEDONNBA. Order using DoorDash today. Terms apply. Okay, so let's take a look now at the guys that I'm going to label starters. It's not just 5 players. In fact, for this one, I've got 7 guys that I'm going to talk about who could be in the mix to start for this team or did start for this team for long periods of time during the season. And we are going to start with your mate, the future MVP, Kyle Kuzma. Kuzma was in an interesting spot where I thought that they shouldn't have re-signed him. I thought that they should have traded him. Apparently, they had a trade for him. He said, I don't want to be traded because he's got a little bit of the Jeremy Grants going on. He wants to be the guy who gets the shots on a bad team. He's won a title already, so I get that. But he just wants to get shots. And this is just who Kyle Kuzma is. He was a player that I was relatively aggressive in targeting for points and category leagues because traditional category ranks will tell you that he's not very good. Yahoo's got him ranked 107th. That's largely he played 70 games, 33 minutes. He's almost 29. But -1 has him 59th because you know that there are problems with his game. He's not going to be efficient. He's not going to get defensive stats. But what he does in bringing high scoring with some very strong out-of-position assists, good rebounds, that can be hard to get. Kuzma had an ADP of 82, so he smashed through that for points and for categories. He averaged 22 points, over 2 threes, 7 rebounds, over 4 assists. The problem is the defense. Half a steal and 0.7 blocks is putrid. He shot 53 on his 2, so that's strong. He shot 46 overall, 78 from the line, which is a big improvement. He'd previously been a 72 guy, and then 34 from 3. So he basically did what we thought he would do, except he was able to add assists into the ledger, which I didn't really think that he would get to that level, but he was really good. For what they needed, no, and that's not true. For what they needed to lose, he was really good. He's still not a very good player, and him in this high usage role means you are going to win 15 games. Because he does, we can talk about Jordan Poole doing dumb stuff. Kuzma does equally dumb stuff all the time. His best similarity to this season was actually an interesting one. Will Barton. Year 7 of Will Barton, who's not even in the league anymore. And not only do you think they're probably a little bit different positions, Kuzma's more of a 4, Barton's a 2, but Barton played a lot as a 3, Kuzma's played a lot as a 3, and a lot of their advanced stuff over at Crafted NBA, it matched up, interestingly. Barton also washed out of the league now, injuries caught up with him. Kuzma's, again, one of those players where context is really dependent. It's just so important with his numbers. If he goes to a team that's useful, he plays 24 minutes a night, he never touches it, he doesn't get assists or score, he's completely useless for fantasy. But that's not where we are at the moment, is it? If he goes to Dallas and plays the PJ Washington role, I'd say he'd almost be close to droppable. But that's not where we're at. He was 59th percentile in EPM, which is actually a little higher than I thought it would be. Defense still terrible. And again, crafted plus-minus numbers. That's that CPM there. If you really suck at defense, and it does penalize the guys a lot who play more minutes, who are distinct negatives. So like you'll see guys who don't play as much be rated higher in that percentile because they're not taking stuff off the table. But because they haven't played as many minutes. So that's something to notice when you're talking about that. So 10th percentile for crafted. What I started to do now in this show, which I didn't do in the Pistons one, is just find an interesting advanced stat that you may not have seen that I think is worth mentioning. He was in the 89th percentile, Kyle Kuzma, in offensive load, meaning that he was in the top 11% of all players in the NBA in terms of what responsibilities they had offensively, which I don't think is really the spot you want Kyle Kuzma. That's to do with creating open shots for others, scoring, turnovers, it's your assist numbers, it's all of that stuff. Like, what are you doing on the offense? Shooting for yourself, setting up others, trying to set up others with turnovers. Like, he's way up there. And that is not a good recipe for success, I don't think. And that is why they didn't have success. So, could he have another season like this one? Possibly. I doubt that a rookie comes in and pushes him away from that role, but this is one that is going to die very quickly. It has no longevity. Speaking of no longevity, Tyus Jones got his first crack at being a starting point guard, and I think it went okay. Jones is 28. He played 66 games, but only 29 minutes a game. Very similar to what happened with Monte Morris last season, where he came across, had a chance at starting, and didn't really get big minutes. Jones was 86th in -1, 71st over on Yahoo because he played, because he never turns it over. We know that. He had an ADP of 81. He was totally fine. He started off terribly. He got a hot streak going, as so many players do, and he was okay. 12 points, 1.6 threes, 2.7 rebounds. All those numbers are well below average, but he makes up for it by getting a lot of assists. 7.3 assists, 1.1 steals, shot 49 and 80, which are both strong. Hit 42 from 3, which was by far a career best for him, and averaged only 1 turnover to 7.3 assists. We know what he is. Much like Monte Morris before him, he's the king of assist to turnovers. This is what he does. Now, part of that is that he's not a particularly dynamic passer or a particularly exciting creator, so he's able to make the smart-ish passes without taking the chances of you've got a small chance of making this. He would never do that. There are some players who will do it but can't, and there are some players who do it and can, and that's what separates guys. So it's why Jones always comes out with these good numbers. You think, well, that's great, but it doesn't really get you anywhere strong, I don't think. His best comparison, according to Crafted, was year 6 of GM legend John Paxson, who, again, was just a completely mid point guard, which is exactly what Tyus is. He was 60th in EPM, 25th in Crafted PM. His relative true shooting, which is, I think, something we need to start using more. You might see it listed as True Shooting Plus on Basketball Reference as well, where it's era adjusted and league adjusted, versus saying, well, he actually shot 40% from the field, versus we can say he was like this, 1% below league average true shooting. So 49th percentile, which would be like a 99 True Shooting Plus. It's the way baseball does it with OPS Plus and things like that. So again, just completely bang on. Even though he shot 42% from 3, right in the middle of the league average for efficiency. I don't think that Tyus Jones will find himself in a starting point guard role next season. And we got the chance for him to do it this season, and I would say that it was okay. It was okay. He's only 28, but you should not be looking at this as your answer anywhere. As much as I like Tyus Jones, he's not. I don't think he's the guy that you want to be considered your franchise point guard. I think that's relatively obvious. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. It is playoff time in the NBA and in the NHL. Baseball season is fully cracking on, and FanDuel is your place to bet on every game. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets, guaranteed. That's $150, win or lose. You can bet on everything from slap shots to home runs, slam dunks, of course. All on an app that is safe and secure and easy to use. But more importantly, you can bet on who you think is going to win each individual playoff game, each individual playoff series. Who's going to meet up in the finals? Who's going to win the finals? Who's going to win finals MVP? You can bet on all that over at FanDuel. So what are you waiting for? Go to FanDuel.com/lockedon and make your first bet an automatic win with that $150 of bonus bets. FanDuel is America's #1 sportsbook, and don't forget to gamble responsibly. Okay, let's go through some more of these. Whoa, I just screwed something up on my end there. That's how I might have to change that. Let's go back and go through some more of these Wizards starters. Those two were relatively obvious. We'll go through to the next one, which is a guy that many considered one of the big breakout players of the season, and that is Deni Avdija. And you look at these numbers and you go, why are people frothing over what Deni did? And I get that. That's fair enough, because these aren't unbelievable numbers. Deni is only 23. He played 75 games and 30 minutes a night. He started basically all of the season. He was only 120th in -1 ranks. He was 102nd on Yahoo. Again, games played pushes that up. 89th in points leagues, in an ADP of 147, but only drafted in 65% of leagues. It's undeniable that Deni took big steps forward. That is true. But it is also worth noting that a lot of it did start to happen towards the end of the year. A lot of injuries happened. Deni himself got injured. And one of those key guys that had like a stretch where he shot 70% from three for like 10 games. And skewed a lot of his numbers up. Not saying he's not good, but just be careful of narrative-based evaluation. He averaged 14.5 points, 7 rebounds, hit a 3 a game, 4 assists, 0.8 steals, 0.5 blocks, bad defensively. 56 from 2 and 38 from 3. Really did great work on his 3-point shooting. That's super impressive. What is very interesting is that his most closely comparable player, based on all the advanced metrics that they use at Crafted, is year 4, first All-Star year, Indiana Pacer, Domantas Sabonis. Bad defense, big man passing, scoring, not much 3-point shooting, efficient, very interesting. Again, this does not suggest that the trajectory that Deni is on is the same trajectory as Sabonis. It just suggests that the most comparable season, based on all of those individual stats, was that Sabonis season. So yeah, that's intriguing. He was 76th percentile in EPM. He was 61st in crafted CPM. All that is impressive. What I really liked here to highlight is Deni's portability, which is a number which suggests his ability to move between lineups, team situations, change his game, and be able to fit in, which for a guy that plays the 3 and the 4 is unbelievably important. You need Deni to handle the ball and run things. He can do it. Be more of a low-usage defensive player, he can do it. Ramp up the usage. In the past, he struggled a little bit with that, but he was able to do it. And that's key. That's someone you always keep an eye on, because what if they do trade Kuzma away? And what if they don't bring back Tyus Jones and Deni's the second ball handler? Then he can actually scale a lot of his stuff up. That's important. He will be drafted in fantasy next year without any question. The thing's going to be is, that's 30 minutes a night. Does he play 33 a night as we move forward? What does he improve on here? Like 56 and 38 from 2 and 3? Hard to improve on that. 74 from the line? Maybe, but he's notoriously been bad there. That's a big improvement. Defensively, I could see him getting to 1.2 steals, which will change a lot of the ideas. And maybe usage jumps up as well. So it is interesting to see what he's able to do for year 5. Big steps forward, but it is hard to evaluate a lot of the stuff that happened on this team because that's who this team is. Let's talk about this bloke, Jordan Poole, stinker. He was a disaster, honestly. He's not even 25, which is pretty amazing. He's played 78 games, but only 30 minutes. And that's one of the things that killed me. I had him obviously high. His ADP was 48. to play only 30 minutes a night after coming from the Warriors and playing 30 minutes a night and have a lower usage than you had in Golden State was unfathomable for me to think at the start of the season. Unfathomable. But it happened. He ended up moving to the bench. They benched him for Bilal Coulibaly. And then Bilal got hurt. And then Kuzma started. And then Poole went to the bench. And then Jones was out. And Poole started at point guard. And down the stretch, top 50 player. Which is bang on that ADP. Things sort of reverted to what I expected. More minutes, more usage, more ball handling. He's 115 points leagues. And by the way, I haven't mentioned this. When I say points leagues, it's me, ESPN default, Yahoo default. They're not that far off the numbers and the rankings of players. So I just created an average rank. Like for Yahoo, he was 98th and ESPN is 110th or whatever it was. Average 105th. Just to give you an idea, a ballpark number. Poole averaged 17 points with 2.5 threes, 2.7 rebounds, and only 4.4 assists. That's something I thought would be much higher, 5.5, maybe 6. 1.1 steals, shooting 41 and 88 from the line with 2.4 turnovers. He shot 49 on his twos and 33 on his threes. And again, that's what killed me. I didn't expect 55% two-point shooting from Jordan Poole, but maybe 51, 52. And I thought maybe we could get 37% from three, maybe 36, with more minutes, with more usage, but none of that worked. Unfortunately, the best comparison for Jordan Poole is former Wizards legend Kendrick Nunn in his runner-up Rookie of the Year campaign with Miami, where Nunn put up numbers but was actually really quite poor, I thought, and that's not a great sign. He was 46th in estimated plus-minus. He was 46th percentile, estimated plus-minus. 4th percentile for CPM, so way down the bottom again. Huge punishments for guys who are big negatives. The minutes hurt there. One thing that I think kills Poole and his ability, A, he doesn't care, B, he's a dumb player, but C, free throw rate, that's what that number is there, in the 15th percentile of getting to the line. On the team like this, when you should have had the ball in your hands, you needed to get to the line way more. He was able to get to the line, I think, 6 times a game for Golden State the year before that. And that's, again, part of it. I thought, well, in a reserve role with other players around, why he's getting to the line there? Surely he just does at least the same thing, but no, he just didn't do it. Didn't shoot, didn't get to the line, didn't pass, didn't improve his minutes, froze himself out, the team froze him out. Just a dreadful season. I will have absolutely zero problem drafting Jordan Poole next season. None whatsoever. It's all about where. And no one is going to be taking Jordan Poole in the top 50, rightfully so. But I would say there is at least 50% chance that Jordan Poole's a top 50 player next season. At least. It's all about, like, what does he do? Does he start? Do they make him the point guard? Does he play 34 minutes? Does his usage go back up? Or does he play this garbage role? If I can get him at pick 100, which I think I might, 100% I'm in on it. He is only 25. He is a dumb player. He is not a very good, strong, winning guy at the moment. Again, he was 2 years ago. He was unbelievable. He helped carry that Warriors team that had Steph and Clay out. He was awesome. But he's also not that guy now. Maybe it's still there. Maybe it's not. Dreadful season. Let's talk about, speaking of dreadful, let's talk about Marvin Bagley III, who obviously started the season for Detroit. They salary dumped him because, Troy Weaver. Bagley ended up having a pretty sizable role here because Daniel Gafford was traded and then they had no other center, but then, of course, Bagley got hurt twice, and that's been a consistent theme for Bags. He's only 25 still, 50 games played, 21 minutes a night. He improved a lot of areas. Interestingly, once he moved from Detroit to Washington, his free throw percentage dropped back to where it was in the past, which was quite bad. So that's a little concerning. But overall, he's Marvin Bagley. 197th in -1, 168th in points. He averaged 12 points, 6 rebounds in 21 minutes, 1 assist, 0.4 steals, 0.7 blocks, shot 59 from the field. He's 76 from the line is good, but it was 70% from the line in Washington. He shot 60% on his twos, 39% on threes, but never took them. His closest comparison was Leon Poe. Year 2 of Leon Poe. Now, I don't know if you remember Leon Poe. That's not a good thing to be compared to him. He was, interestingly, 67th percentile EPM and 44th in CPM. So, again, pretty solid. If I'm going to shit on guys and criticize them, and I do, when they make some improvements, I'll mention it. And Bagley did. He's never going to be a strong starting center. He's never going to be a starting center that you want. He still has a lot of issues in terms of defensively, his inability to pass ever or shoot. But there are situations that when he was starting for the Wizards, you wanted him on your fantasy team. Part of the reason you don't want that as a real team is that He was in the 53rd percentile in contesting shots at the rim, and you're 6'11", you're a center. Bro, you've got to get up there and actually put your body in the way, but he doesn't do it. He never has done it. He's a points and rebounds center who doesn't defend, doesn't switch, doesn't shoot, doesn't pass. And that has, fine, come in as a 19-minute-a-night backup Montrezl Harrell type, but it doesn't lead to anything more than that. He could very easily enter the season as the starter, but I would imagine if Vukcevic takes steps forward, then Bagley won't be long for that role. Because Vukcevic is young and got the ability to actually step into a larger role at some point. Let's talk about one of the biggest, I don't know what the right term is for this guy, but someone who fools people a lot, that's Cory Kispert. Kispert's 25 as well, same age as Marvin Bagley, like we said, extension eligible because he came into the draft older, was drafted too high, and is very extraordinarily one-dimensional. He played 80 games, 26 minutes a night. So when you see Yahoo ranking was 148th, it's a lot of the games played and the 1.2 turnovers is doing a lot of heavy lifting to suggest that he was a 12-team league player, because he was not. He was 213th -1 for the year, 188th in points leagues, averaging 13.5 points with 2.3 dribbles, 2.8 rebounds, 2 assists, half a steal, and 0.2 blocks. They are putrid. A 2.7 combined assist, steals, and blocks is dreadful. He shot only 49 from the field and only 73 from the line. He's trying to Joe Harris us, be a good three-point shooter who can't hit free throws. Although in the past, he was good. Low turnovers. What he's been able to do, and I had skepticism, but consistently in his career, he's an unbelievable two-point percentage player. 65% on twos. I don't really know why or how he's doing it, but he is. Austin Reeves has a little bit of that in him as well. But he only hit 38% from three. He is just so extraordinarily one-dimensional. His best comparison was a bloke by the name of Michael Dickerson, rookie season, back in the 90s. I do not rate Cory Kispert at all. EPM had him 47th percentile. CPM has him 4th. That's bad. For a guy that's not like a huge minute guy, not a guy that's not a big, you're doing a lot for the team, but it's all negative, to be 4th is quite alarming. His shot quality, which is a metric over on Crafted, basically just tries to evaluate how good of a shooter you are. He was 81st percentile, and you might think that's pretty good. Sure, but when it's your only thing that you do, you need to be way better than that. That's why I wanted to highlight that. 81st percentile sounds good, but he does nothing else. So if you can't actually shoot up to the top 10% of the league, you don't really have a role. He is a bad permanent fantasy player. I think he's quite a bad real-life player. He'll have the occasional good game where other players sit, he gets red hot from three, and he puts up these great numbers. But overall, he is not somebody, Cory Kispert, that I have any level of faith or interest in as we move forward. But I do a little bit with this bloke. Bilal Coulibaly. Bilal is not yet 20 years old. He played 63 games, season ended early with a wrist fracture, 27 minutes a night. In the preseason, Deni Avdija was out, and they started Bilal. I went, okay, it's pretty interesting. If he's going to start with his ability to generate defensive stats, maybe we take a flyer on him. I guess not many people actually bought into that because he was only drafted in 3% of leagues with an ADP of 145, but taking him the last round, totally reasonable. It didn't work out, obviously, but that's cool. You just move on. 250 -1, 215th in points. He averaged 8 points with 1-3, 4 rebounds. But what I'm encouraged by is 0.8 blocks as a guard/forward. Only 0.9 steals should have been better. And 1.7 assists should have been better. To 1.7 assists to 1.4 turnovers. He shot 50% on his twos, which as a 19-year-old is amazing for a rookie. 35 on three, also very encouraging. And the best comparison to that is rookie Aaron Gordon. And I went, oh, okay. Again, not saying that Aaron Gordon was very good as a rookie. Fantasy-wise, he wasn't. Well, this doesn't mean that Bilal turns into Aaron Gordon. But it's at least interesting enough that I go, that's something there for me. He's really young, Bilal as well. EPM had him 14th percentile, CPM 20th percentile, but what is encouraging is defensive versatility, 82nd percentile, able to guard bigs, ball handlers, off-ball guys. I think that those defensive stats will come. I think you'll have a 1.4 steal, one block per game season at some point. I think that the usage will jump. I think the shooting efficiency will jump. I think the finishing will jump. I don't know that he ever becomes a star. I don't think he does. But there are numerous things there that I saw flashes of that are definitely going to, well, not definitely, that I am very confident will be able to improve. He will be a 100% a draftable player next season. Whether that works out or not, I don't know, but we will look to draft him. But this is what they've got to figure out. What do they do with Kispert and Poole and Jones and Avdija? Does he start? He should start over Kispert, but then you run into a real spacing issue. Unless he starts to become more volume from three and hitting him at this rate. Very encouraging. I think year 3 is going to be the big one for Bilal, but nothing was super negative in what I saw from him this season. Very encouraged with Bilal. It's going to be slow. I don't think he'll ever be a top 20, top 30 player. Top 50 is a possibility, but it's going to take time. But some very, very positive indicators from what Coulibaly did this season. Let's talk about their second round draft pick. Tristan. Oh, shouldn't have done that because Bilal was not in my list of starters anyway. I'm just getting used to this new format. So let's do it now. Other players of note. That's what we want to talk about. Bilal was one of them. Vukcevic is another one, who only came across at the end of the season and played just 15 minutes a night for 10 games. Started a lot of those games when Bagley was out and Holmes was injured, and obviously a bunch of stuff needs to change or needs to happen here, but interesting. He wasn't drafted, obviously, because he wasn't in the NBA. He doesn't even have like a crafted comparison. He's not even on their system at this point. Barely played. 150 minutes. He was 273rd in -1. Again, this is where I think totals don't really give you any sort of benefit. 433 on Yahoo because he barely played. He averaged 8.5 points with 1 3 in 15 minutes. That's 3.6 rebounds, 0.7 blocks, shot 43 and 77, including 61% from 3. 61% from 2, and only 28 from 3. I'm not suggesting he's going to be a very, very strong three-point shooter, but that's getting up a lot of attempts. He hit 1 3 a game in 15 minutes, hitting just 28% of them. That is real stretch stuff, and added in decent block rate. He's not going to be Kristaps Porzingis. He's not going to be his namesake, close enough namesake, Nikola Vukcevic. He's a better three-point shooter than Vooch to begin with. But encouraged. 64th percentile EPM. Unbelievably low sample, 150 minutes. That's so small to draw any conclusions. But I'll tell you what it is it's better to be sitting there than it is to be terrible. If I had to choose, like if you're the 20th percentile or the 64th percentile, I'll take 64th. And that's with being a large negative on offense. And I think that's going to end up being his calling card. So it's going to be like he just took a ton of threes and didn't hit them. Like that, turn that around and we're talking something interesting. The usage is not something that will be real. It's actually, I had 23 usage, actually 24 usage he had, which is high. That's not going to be a real number. But he's 21, got some experience in, has a shot to be a starter. I think, again, it's probably like Bilal, something we look for in the 25-26 season. But I wouldn't be shocked if he's a 12-team fantasy player. They could pick one and take Alex Sarr, which completely ruins Vukcevic. Maybe Sarr's terrible. I don't know. But enough there that I'm interested, and he definitely didn't embarrass himself coming across and playing those minutes at the end of the season. Speaking of embarrassing yourself, what about the sandwich, Patrick Baldwin Jr.? That's a little bit harsh, but man, he had some really, really terrible games. First round pick a couple of years ago from the Warriors, came across in the Jordan Poole deal. He ended up playing some minutes down the stretch. He's still only 21. He's basically the same age as Vukcevic, but he's played 2 years now. 38 games, 13 minutes. He was 346 in -1, 4.5 points, 3 rebounds, half a steal, half a block. But, man, you're a power forward. You shot 38 from the field, 48 from 2, 32 from 3. If you're not going to be banging in and hitting close-range shots, hit your threes at least. Got into a ton of foul trouble. He only had half a turnover, but only 0.8 assists because he doesn't do anything like that. What the idea with Baldwin is, who's a very tall, lanky, 6'10" power forward, is to be a shooting, shot-blocking big man. The blocks are okay. 0.4 blocks in 13 minutes is fine. It's not perfect, but it's fine. But you've got to do more. His similarity profile was Darrell Arthur, Kansas legend. And that's, how long did that bloke last? About 2-3 years in the NBA? 30th percentile EPM, 35th percentile CPM for Baldwin. A couple of little flashes, but I fear that the flashes were just like, yeah, you're doing this stuff in garbage time. And not by garbage, I mean garbage time of the season. We need Avdija out. We need Bilal out. We need Kuzma out. And then you'll have like 11% shooting nights. There's enough of a fantasy profile there with him to go, well, if he gets consistent minutes, if he becomes a better shooter, then we like it. But absolutely not at this point. More than likely a guy that has the fourth year team option of his rookie contract declined than it is that he becomes ever a top 150 player. A couple of small flashes, but that's about it. You want to talk about getting a rookie contract declined? This needs to happen now because John Davis is terrible. Johnny Davis is one of those guys that I did get correct in the draft. Well, maybe not correct because I still had him in the first round and you wouldn't have him there now. But I didn't get it. I didn't see it. An older player who comes back as a sophomore, who benefits from gigantic usage on a team with nobodies, taking a lot of shots he'll never be allowed to do in the NBA, and jacking up numbers based on that. And then something happened to his shot form. He just looks terrible. They should not pick up that team option for year 4. He is terrible. They are a bad team and they can't play. And that's how, and they want to lose. But it's embarrassing having him on the court at this point. And I know that sounds harsh, but is it? Or is it just accurate? Like, he is just bad. What a waste of a pick at pick number 10 that was. Again, I still had him as a first-round player and never would have taken him at pick 1. At pick 10. Never would have done that. But he just needs to be better. Like, way better. And I don't think it's going to happen. Davis is 22, so he's older than like Patrick Baldwin and that. That's 22. It's not super old, but it's not young. 50 games, 12 minutes a game. 464th in -1, 456th in points. He was drafted nowhere. 3 points he averaged in year 2. 0.3 triples, 1.4 rebounds, 0.4 steals, shot 40 from the field. An inexplicable 58 from the line as a guard. 42 on his 2s and 35 on his 3s. His best comparison was Quincy Pondexter. He was 2nd percentile EPM, like basically the worst player in the NBA, and 8th percentile CPM. For a guy that's a guard who ran some point guard stuff at Wisconsin, his creation percentile, again, that's creating for others. I'll give you the exact definition of what the creation number means. It's box creation, which I think was created by Ben Taylor. It's a per 100 estimate of the number of open shots that are created for teammates. So it's not assists, it's potential assists. It's basically just what are you doing to create stuff on the team for others? 8th percentile. Bro, it's not that he's like doing it for himself because they're not going in. Just everything about John Davis is bad. His creation number is like, I don't know. It's horrible. What we saw from him I've seen nothing good at all. Even if I go look at his G League numbers, like they're a little bit better. 12 points a game in the G League as a second-year player. So that's not true. That's 12 points a game as a first-year player. As a second-year player, he shot 36% from the field in 28 minutes in the G League, averaged 8 points, shot 21% from 3, got worse on his free throws. He averaged 2 steals in the G League, and he was a pretty good option in terms of generating deflections. But man, I would cut him immediately. I'd decline that rookie option and I'd cut him. There's just no point. And I don't think you should have any hope in him whatsoever. Just a couple of other things to quickly talk about. Talk a lot about these crafted things and their young core. The 4 guys they mentioned their young core, which interestingly, Johnny Davis is in there, so that's a little off. But Baldwin, Avdija, and Bilal are in that group. Their best 5 closers, they think, are Avdija, Bagley, Holmes, Jones, and Shamet. No Poole there. No Kuzma there. And their versatile defending group, Avdija, Baldwin, Coulibaly, and Davis again, because there was a level of value in what he was able to do defensively, disrupting stuff. But man, like this team is just... Who's their best player? Let me ask you that question. Who's the Wizards' best player? Is it Deni Avdija? It probably is, yes. Kuzma does some stuff, but he takes so much off the table. They've got a lot to decide on in the offseason. Their draft is going to change a lot of things, but I can see big improvements from Deni. I can see big improvements from Bilal. I can see big improvements from Poole. I can see declines from Tyus. The center position is completely up in the air, and Kuzma's the big question mark. I don't think he repeats what he did this season. Perfect storm, all of that. And I think some of it pulls back. But they just need to acquire talent. I think it's going to be rough for them again this coming season. But it doesn't have to be rough for you because you can just double bang. So thumb it up. Leave your comments down below. And yeah, guys, what did you think about... Oh, Obi's here. Guys, we are done here. Thank you so much for listening, everyone. See ya.